You've lived your whole life climbing a mountain, step after step, sacrifice after sacrifice, believing that once you reach the top, everything will make sense. The love you never received will be replaced by admiration. The emptiness you've carried will be filled with meaning. The noise in your head will finally go silent. But when you get there, nothing happens. The view is impressive, yes. You've made it further than most. People admire you. Some envy you. But in the quiet of your success, you feel a strange sense of vertigo, not from the height, but from the hollowness. And then a whisper inside you asks, what if you climbed the wrong mountain? What if everything you thought you needed, achievement, validation, happiness, was never the goal at all? What if the very idea of figuring life out is the lie that keeps us from truly living? You followed every rule, believed every promise, checked every box, and still, late at night, when the distractions fade and the world goes quiet, you feel it. A subtle ache, a whisper of something missing, something important, something real. We all feel it. Most of us run from it. But there was one man who didn't. He wasn't a prophet or a guru. He didn't speak in riddles or wear the robes of enlightenment. He was just awake. Awake in a way most people fear. Awake to the illusions, to the absurdity, to the quiet tragedy of how we live. He didn't chase pleasure. He didn't chase success. He chased truth, even when it burned. This man tore apart every idea he was given. He dismantled his identity piece by piece until only something raw and terrifying remained. Himself. Not the self polished by culture, not the self shaped by trauma, not the self sculpted for approval, just the naked self staring back from the void. And here's what's unsettling. He found peace there, not the peace of comfort, but the peace of knowing. Knowing what he was, what life was, what it wasn't. He figured life out in a way that most of us never will, not because we can't, but because we're too afraid to look. So, ask yourself, would you rather live a beautiful lie or face a painful truth? Would you rather seem alive or be alive? Before you can walk the path he walked, you must first confront the thing you were never taught to see. The hidden problem beneath your suffering. It's been there all along, whispering, waiting. The problem isn't outside of you. It never was. It isn't the economy, or your job, or your ex. It's not that you haven't achieved enough, or that you need to become your best self. The real problem is far more insidious because it lives inside you. And worse, you think it is you. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to survive in society. From childhood, you learned that being your raw, emotional, instinctual self was dangerous. So you adapted. You became agreeable, ambitious, attractive. You learned how to be what others wanted. But in the process, you buried something. You exiled parts of yourself, your anger, your fear, your madness, your longing, and locked them in the basement of your psyche. You built a life above that basement. You called it adulthood. But the truth? You don't live that life. You perform it. This is the hidden problem. You are living someone else's idea of who you should be. Friedrich Nietzsche warned us about this. He said most people never become who they are. They become what is expected of them. The obedient worker, the loving spouse, the productive citizen. They call it virtue. He called it slavery of the soul. Modern life only makes it worse. We are flooded with distractions, dopamine hits, infinite content, curated perfection. We've become addicted to images of life instead of the experience of it. And when we feel that emptiness rise up, the ache in our chest, the aimless scrolling at 2 a.m., the sudden panic and silence, we don't question the system. We question ourselves. Maybe I just need to be more disciplined. Maybe I need to manifest harder. Maybe I'm the problem. Number. You're not broken. You're buried. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that life itself was suffering, not as punishment, but as reality. Our endless striving, our dissatisfaction, our existential angst, all symptoms of a deeper wound. The human condition is built on desire, but desire has no finish line. So we chase things that sparkle, and when they fade, we panic. We chase connection, but fear intimacy. We chase peace, but cannot sit still. The man who figured life out, he saw through it all. He realized that what we call normal is often a silent tragedy. That success, love, happiness, none of it matters if it's built on a false self. That true freedom begins not by adding, but by unmasking. And now, you've seen the mask. But what happens when you refuse to wear it anymore? What happens when you stop running from your shadow and let it speak? What happens is consequence. You think you're making choices, but what if most of what you call freedom is just a finely tuned response to fear? The unseen consequences of living from the mask, from the false self, aren't always dramatic. They don't come like thunder. They arrive slowly, quietly, like a fog creeping in while you sleep. You don't notice them until it's too late. You feel it when you laugh at jokes that don't amuse you, when you say yes to things that drain your soul, when you look in the mirror and wonder why your eyes look tired, no matter how much you sleep. Cognitive psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, that subtle mental friction between who you are and who you pretend to be. Neurologically, it's exhausting. Emotionally, it's corrosive. Spiritually, it's death by 1,000 small lies. You wake up each day with an unshakable anxiety, but you can't name its source. You succeed, but the joy fades quicker than it arrives. You love, but always with one foot out the door. Because deep down, your nervous system knows something you're too afraid to admit. You're not living your truth. And when you suppress your truth, you don't just lose your voice. You lose your vitality. You become flat, not sad, not broken, just numb. You scroll endlessly, not because you're bored, but because you're starving for something real. Aldous Huxley saw it coming. He warned that the future wouldn't be controlled by pain, but by pleasure. That we wouldn't be enslaved by force, but by distraction. That we'd be so sedated by comfort and entertainment, we wouldn't notice we were losing ourselves. And he was right. Society doesn't need to imprison you. It just needs to keep you entertained enough to avoid asking dangerous questions like, who am I beneath all this? What do I actually want? Am I living my truth or someone else's version of success? Left unchecked, these invisible chains solidify. You begin to believe the performance is your personality. You forget how to cry without shame. You forget how to scream without apology. You forget that once, long ago, you wanted more. That's the cost of disconnection, not from others, from yourself. The man who figured life out, he refused to pay that price. He refused to live a life that looked good, but felt dead. He let the illusions burn. And in the ashes, he found something few ever do: rebellion. But not the kind you think. No raised fists, no slogans, no war against the world. It was quieter, deeper, more dangerous. It began the moment he stopped lying to himself. And if you're ready, your rebellion can begin there too. Rebellion doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like silence, like stillness, like the radical act of sitting with your pain instead of running from it. The man who figured life out didn't escape the trap by fighting the world. He escaped by refusing to lie to himself. That was his rebellion. He stopped pretending he was okay, stopped chasing things that meant nothing, stopped trying to impress people he didn't even respect. And most importantly, he stopped fearing the dark corners of his own mind. Carl Jung called it shadow work, the process of facing the parts of yourself you've exiled, your rage, your envy, your guilt, your chaos. Most people suppress these things, bury them, but he invited them in because he knew the truth. You cannot become whole by pretending to be good. You become whole by integrating the parts of yourself you've rejected. He didn't become free by building a stronger ego. He became free by dismantling it. This was the beginning of his transformation, not through control, but through surrender. He surrendered the need to be liked, surrendered the need to win, surrendered the illusion that he needed to be anything other than what he truly was. It wasn't easy. He lost friends. He lost comfort. He lost the fake smiles and scripted conversations. But in return, he gained something priceless: authenticity. Not as a performance, but as a way of being. This is the rebellion modern society fears most. Not violence, not chaos, but self-possession. Because when you no longer crave external validation, you stop being easy to control. When you are no longer ashamed of your flaws, your darkness, your truth, no ideology, no ad, no social rule can hold power over you. You become a threat, not to people, but to illusions. Nietzsche called this becoming who you are. Not finding yourself like a lost object, creating yourself deliberately from the rubble of what no longer serves you. He said, you must become the person you are, not the person you were told to be. The man who figured life out understood this. He didn't seek healing to become normal. He sought healing to become real. And that's what changed everything. You don't break free by fixing yourself. You break free by realizing you were never broken, only conditioned, only asleep. So how do you begin? You stop running. You sit in the fire. You question everything you've been told about love, success, and happiness. You grieve the parts of you you've abandoned. And then step by step, you rebuild. Not to fit in, but to stand alone, with truth as your only guide. Because freedom doesn't come from fighting the world. It comes from no longer being at war with yourself. And when that happens, you're ready for the final step. The truth that changes everything. There comes a moment, if you're brave enough, when the search ends. Not because you found what you were looking for, but because you finally realize there was never anything missing. This was the truth the man discovered. After peeling back every illusion, after facing his shadow, his pain, his longing, after tearing down the false self brick by brick, he didn't become enlightened. He became empty. And in that emptiness, he found something no philosophy, no religion, no self-help book could offer. Peace. Not the peace of achievement. Not the peace of understanding, but the peace of being. It was then he saw the final paradox. All the effort, all the pain, all the existential spiraling. It had never been about becoming someone. It had always been about returning. Returning to the self that existed before the world told him who to be. Before shame was introduced, before innocence was traded for performance. before silence became something to fear. He realized that the true self isn't found in the future. It's uncovered in the now, beneath the noise, beneath the narratives, beneath the layers of fear. This was his ultimate liberation. Life doesn't need to be solved. It needs to be felt. The question that haunted him, who am I? What is the point? What if I never become enough? They didn't need answers. They needed to dissolve. He understood what the mystics meant when they said, "You're not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." He stopped seeking meaning like a beggar. He started embodying meaning like a creator. He no longer asked life to explain itself. He became the explanation. His presence was his truth. His breath was his prayer. And his existence, raw and unpolished, was finally enough. So what does it mean to figure life out? It means to die, not physically, but psychologically, to die to the false self, to let go of who you were never meant to be, to stand naked before the void and say, "This is me." No masks, no roles, no apologies. It means to live without needing permission, to speak without rehearsing, to love without bargaining, to walk without needing a destination. And most of all, it means to remember that beneath your wounds, your doubts, your endless striving, you already are what you've been searching for. So now, the only question that remains is this: will you dare to stop running? Will you dare to sit in your own silence? Will you dare to become the person you were before the world got to you? The man who figured life out wasn't special. He was simply honest, radically, painfully, beautifully honest. And that is where freedom begins.